What's up guys, and welcome back to On the Brick. As I'm sure you're able to tell, I wasn't able to fix it. And I certainly tried to fix this thing, but as I'll talk about in this video, I'm not sure how likely that is. And considering what I have planned for the month of December, if I did not get this video out today, I would not be getting it out this year. And to be perfectly clear, this video is not going to be a review. I do not believe that I can give you a proper review of this set. And this entire video is going to be talking about why, so don't worry. But before I go into that, there are a few things that I want to make clear and just put out there so that there is no confusion. First off, I legitimately spent at least 10 hours over the last few weeks trying to put this thing back together, and this is the state it's in. And second, but more importantly, this set was one requested by a patron. After seeing my non-LEGO Razor Crest video, they reached out to me and asked if they could help me purchase this one. Now, I did talk to them about the delays and they were fine with it, but they did ask to remain anonymous because just like the Razor Crest, this is also made with non-LEGO pieces. And I know in saying that a lot of people are already gonna jump on this and say that of course this thing fell apart when I used non-LEGO pieces. And if you really care that much about a word on some plastic bricks, then I'm happy you don't have anything more serious going on in your life. But while the physical pieces and bricks themselves are actually perfectly fine and I had no issues with them like I did on the Razor Crest, I did notice that the gears and Technic pieces like the axles and whatnot were not really the best. And of course I'll be showing what I mean. However, and this is the part where I know I'm going to lose some of you, I do not believe that certain design choices with this set help secure the wings at all. And again, I'm going to get into all of that in just one second, but I did want to show some of the things this set has, and some of the smaller problems along the way as well. For instance, there is actually a loading ramp underneath the cockpit, and as you can see immediately, the pieces aren't all the way there, and that's because these particular non-LEGO were just a little tighter than normal LEGO. In terms of build stability or anything, this isn't actually a problem, it keeps things together tight, but you will have to use a little bit more effort in actually clutching them together. However, the bigger issue that I wanted to talk about here were these hinge pieces. The light one on the front is the non-LEGO, while the gray one on the back and the two on the other side have been replaced by real LEGO. And that's because with these more technical and more advanced quote-unquote pieces, the non-LEGO versions only mimic what they should look like, but not necessarily their function. All of this to say, they just did not have the power to hold the bottom of the cockpit up. And I also want to mention that this isn't even the entire bottom side of the cockpit, this is only about half of it. If you see this extra piece sticking out here, that's where the rest of it goes, which fell off when I was moving this. And I really do want to emphasize here that even though I switched out 3 of the 4 hinges with real LEGO, they still could not hold up this entire thing, it was still sagging. But one thing that's really weird about the design is that, like I said, there is an actual ramp to the interior here that you can't actually pull down. It gets blocked by the underside of the cockpit here, and if you have it already hanging down, there's no way for it to stay in place securely. That's not to do with the pieces this time around, that's just how the design is. I spent a good amount of time messing around with that as well, trying to fix it. But before I move on from these hinges, the last thing that I want to point out and have you remember is that they are not being enforced, or reinforced I should say, by anything else. While we're looking at the cockpit, you can actually remove this top here and look inside of it. And while on one hand, this is actually a pretty plain cockpit, in their defense, we didn't really get to see that much of it in the movie. Really quick, I want to apologize for the camera just because of the nature of this set and how big it is. I had to go handheld, and so things are going to be a little weird. I'm so sorry for that. But one design choice that I really did like is how the sides of the cockpits are held on by these ball joints. I think it was a very clever idea and it worked very well. One thing I did not like about this cockpit though were how these seats were done. I know this is a weird complaint, but I feel like they should have put a tile here or something more along the lines of what Dave Customs does in his sets. Because it's pretty clear that this entire shuttle is definitely not meant to be a playset and is more of a display piece, so it's honestly just a little weird seeing this. There is an area behind the cockpit here which is a little hard to see considering everything, but you're also not missing much. There is a single chair, a single command console, and this ladder that goes down to the area beneath it. And one thing that is a little strange about this area is that there's just no good way of seeing it. The only way to access it is by lowering that ramp in the front, and in fact, if you really want to access it, lowering everything. And honestly, this looks good. What confuses me a little bit is why areas like this are fully tiled off while things like the chairs aren't. Those are two different styles being meshed together in the same set. I personally prefer how something like this looks, being all tiled off and smooth, especially at this scale, which again is definitely meant for display. You can remove the top of everything in the back pretty much. You can start by taking off this sole piece here and then removing all of this. And full disclosure here, this area has been torn apart just because of me trying to fix this and nothing else. This roof here is a little more fragile than I would personally like, but it was holding together perfectly fine. And once you finally get all of these pieces out of the way, you get access to an interior that doesn't really have anything. And look, there literally is not much in there. I will show you what's in there, but there's no cargo area or anything like that. It's all just structural support. So with all of that said, let's finally get to the wings. And I want to start off by saying how well I think these things were designed. Not only are they extremely reminiscent of the UCS Imperial Shuttle, but they are also almost exactly identical to Brickvault's version of this build. But because of the way that they are built and both wings on each side being connected to each other, there is a decent amount of weight to them. They're not like 35 pounds or anything like that, but they are heavy enough that they will need support. And that is where these gears come in, because these gears just do not provide the necessary support. These gears are weird, and honestly I was hesitant at first to say they were the issue. Not only have I seen other people build this exact version of this exact set perfectly fine, I've also personally built the non-LEGO version of the UCS Imperial Shuttle, which uses these same gears, and I had no problems with that. But after spending so much time trying to fix this thing, it was one of the only options I had left. And you can instantly see one of the problems here. There's a single 11 long axle going through all these gray tubes, and it's leaning slightly down towards the left there. But there are a lot more gears on the inside too. And this is what it looks like in there. You can see that there's a good few more gears and how they're all pretty much connected together. And so yeah, the entire structural support of these wings isn't actually that much. Now, to be clear, these gray ones on the outside are the ones that we were just looking at. They connect to these gray ones on the inside, and the black ones, they move it around. You should know how these gears things work. And then finally they connect to this gearbox here, which connects down to this small black gear down here. And in theory, you should be able to turn these smaller gears to raise or lower the entirety of the wings. And that is something that is physically not possible without supporting them. And so this is what happens. This is what happens when the wings have no support. They just fall over, and that's why the entire set is lifting on its side. I can lower it here and even it out, but the second I let go, it just flops back over. And I'm really only showing you that to show you just how much weight there is in these wings. But I also think that's where the lack of structural support comes in. As you probably have seen, these gearboxes are being physically lifted from their spot and turned. Now, every single time that I've tried to fix this, it's really not that hard to put them back into place. But that's not the problem. The problem is that the entirety of these wings are pretty much relying on just these gearboxes, and these gearboxes are not secured in any way. Because yes, there is that axle pin that goes slightly through into the black Technic piece next to it, but obviously that's not enough. I actually reached out to Brickvault to see if they would be willing to show me how their wing connection is done on their Zeta class. At the time of recording this audio, I have not heard back from them. If I do before this video goes live, there will be an addition at the end of this video. If I hear back from them after this video goes live, there will just be a new video. And I really do hope they get back to me because I would love to know if I'm making any sense here or if I have no idea what I'm talking about. But do you remember those hinge pieces that were underneath the cockpit? These ones here, these ones that had to support the entire underside of the cockpit and that you would have to open if you wanted to get inside. These ones that had no reinforcements on them, meaning that even if you used real Lego, they would still pop off every single time. That was a design choice. That was not the pieces. With the exception of that one, I switched out the pieces and I still had the same exact problem. But the reason I bring that up is because if the designer of the set is going to make a small mistake like that there, perhaps they would make it elsewhere too. But to be perfectly clear, even if that's the case, we're only talking about like 10% of the problem here. Because there are some attempts of adding structural integrity, like this beam going from the outside all the way in, but they don't really do that much, especially when you have a loose Technic axle on the inside. But remember those hinge pieces that are underneath the cockpit, the ones that I had to switch out because the non-Lego versions only mimic what they should look like, but not what they should do? Yeah, it's almost like I brought all that up earlier for a reason. Well, I'm absolutely certain that these gear pieces are the same. Because the reality is that the company who made this particular set, or more so the pieces, is not the same as the one who made the Imperial shuttle that I built. Here meaning to say that these particular gear pieces only mimic the look of the Lego ones, but not the job. And having the proper Lego gears in place will likely fix a huge part of this problem. Because these gears clearly don't do the job. Even when this was fully built and actually holding together just fine, raising and lowering the wings was an entire process in itself that needed me to support them the entire way. So again, while the physical bricks and plates and those kind of pieces are actually perfectly fine, these gears and whatnot are very clearly the majority of the problem this time around. Now, one reason I'm not entirely able to say that they are 100% the problem is because the wings are meant to go this low. If you've seen the movie, then you know that the wings are supposed to lower all the way down. But when they are in that position, they should not be doing this to the gearbox. So I am going to do a few things. First, I'm going to wait for that response from Brickfall and hopefully get one. You're probably seeing on screen if they responded to me yet or not. And second, I'm going to try to replace all of the gears with actual Lego ones and see if that actually fixes the problem. You're probably not going to see that for a while because 1, December's going to be a little different, and 2, the new year is going to see some new things come to this channel. Hopefully, assuming all those plans go well. But regardless, that is something that I want to do. With all of that said, to my patron who asked if this specific non-Lego version is worth getting, I would probably hold off on that right now. If you want to take the risk of buying this for 90% of the build and then getting the gears through Lego and also buying the actual instructions from the actual designer, then obviously I can't stop you. And if you do it, then maybe you can let me know if that fixes the problem. Because I do want to say that I actually had an incredibly enjoyable experience putting this together. There weren't really any super frustrating parts, there wasn't anything that I didn't get, and I was able to binge watch the entirety of The Expanse while doing this. And in the extremely short amount of time that it was actually holding together, it looked awesome. I just don't know, despite seeing other people build this, if this experience is unique to me or if it's a big problem. So that's what I have to say. I know a lot of people are going to have issues with me using non-Lego bricks, which is really funny because almost no one had issues with that with the Razor Crest, but that was an actual good build. And again, this one wasn't bad, it's just those gears and whatnot that I think are the problem. And yes, at some point I would love to build Brick Vault's version of this. Of course, that will be done with real Lego if I ever do. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and maybe take a guess as to what you think I'm going to be doing in December. I promise you, it's not that hard to figure out. Please do like this video, that would go a long way this time around, and I would really appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in having more of this conversation about Lego and non-Lego. Also, like I mentioned, this video was only possible thanks to the support of a patron and all of my patrons. You can join them at the link in the description down below, or sign up for a membership where you get pretty much all of the same perks. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.